You don't need expensive software. You just need attention to detail. You need persistence. You need to do it on a consistent basis. Like those are the basics will take you very, very far.
Welcome to Multifamily Insights. I'm your host, John Casman, and I want to thank you for joining us for another great episode. If you are getting some great value from our awesome guests and need a little favor from you, leave us a rating and review. It helps other people find this show, but also gives us the feedback we need to make sure the show continues to deliver for your investing needs. And if you haven't done so already, make sure you hit that follow or subscribe button so you don't miss an episode. Now, we've got a great show today. We're going to be talking to Gary Lipsky. They say you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. So if you want to grow as a multifamily investor, you have to spend more time with other multifamily investors. And an easy way to do that is to join our apartment investing mastermind group today. Just go to casmancapital.com and click on the mastermind button. Now, as a part of this group, you'll get access to expert trainings, group coaching calls, industry news and updates, as well as all of our webinars and workshops, including our 3-hour workshop on raising capital. Again, if you want to be around other multifamily investors that can help you scale your portfolio today and grow your network, make sure you're a part of the Apartment Investing Mastermind. Just go to casmancapital.com and click on the Mastermind button today. Gary Lipsky is a multifamily syndicator who has done over $250 million in real estate transactions. Now, he is the president of Break of Day Capital and is the host of the Real Estate Investor Podcast, not to mention the best-selling author of Best in Class, the groundbreaking book on asset management. Let's welcome to the show, Gary Lipsky.
Ron, thanks for having me. I've been a big fan of your podcast for a while.
Well, thank you, Gary. I've been a fan of yours as well. It's great to have you on the show. I feel like it's a little bit long overdue. So, with that said, why don't you give our listeners a little bit more context on your background?
Yeah, I've been a lifelong entrepreneur, running business for a while. Started investing in real estate in 2002, just in our single family home, and then not until I sold the business at the end of 2016 did I get into it full time. And it was a mix of my passions of numbers and creative side of things, and that creating win-win scenarios for our investors and for residents by transforming communities, which has been a lot of fun to come in. Like we're big value add players, and so that's been kind of neat. Painting, landscaping, creating much nicer homes for people that are in workforce housing, and they don't build new homes for them; they build new Class A. So um, it's it's been really really cool to accomplish those things.
I love it, man. You talk about transforming communities, particularly in workforce housing, and I love your anecdote there, right? Like they don't really build new communities there. The cost of development is so high that most people only do it for Class A luxury housing, or if there's some sort of private, public partnership and there's some tax credits or things like that, well, maybe you could build affordable housing. But as far as workforce housing, a little harder to do. I know some people hear some of these terms and they sound interchangeable and maybe somewhat confusing. When you say workforce housing, what do you mean and how does that compare to maybe affordable housing?
Yeah, so I guess our target is the people making about 40 to 75, $80,000. Um, so they have enough to pay for their bills, but not enough to buy a home. Um, and so where affordable housing is more, they're getting maybe 60% of median household income, or 80% or 40%, and so or more Section 8 type stuff. Um, so yeah, that is that middle ground where that's the bulk of America that lives in that workforce housing. And there's just a lack of it, and everyone needs a good, safe place to live, and that's what we provide.
Yeah, I love that definition because you're talking about the backbone of America, right? I think people hear workforce housing and politicians may try to use different terminology to make something sound good, but ultimately what you're talking about is most Americans, right? Hardworking Americans, good jobs. These are our teachers, these are our police officers, these are the pillars in our community who have good jobs, but maybe they're not making enough money to go out there and buy a house, or interest rates have priced them out of, certain homes, and they don't want to live in the class A luxury high rises, right? So they still want a place to live and they want it to be nice. They can pay more money in rent for a nicer home, a nicer apartment, but they don't have that many options because no one's building these new ones. So what you're talking about is transforming the communities to update them to provide more quality housing for this resident base. So I love that. We talked a little bit about kind of your background. Where are you focused? I know you live out in California, but I believe most of your properties are just slightly further east.
Yeah, yeah. So Arizona has been where we've done all of our deals so far, Phoenix and Tucson. We love those markets. It's very landlord friendly, a tremendous job growth, population growth, rent growth. And we've been, very successful there. We've also been looking in the Southwest, so Vegas and Albuquerque as well. But so far, we've done all of our deals in Arizona.
There you go. What is it about Arizona that attracts you? You mentioned that it's business friendly. What are some of the other things that you like about it?
Yeah, so here in California, during COVID, I don't think you were able to raise rents for years. There in Arizona, if someone wasn't paying rent, we can get them into a rental assistance program, and if they weren't taking action, then we can get them out. Happy to help them get that rental assistance, but the person also has to meet us halfway. Um, also, what we love is, particularly in Tucson, the deals weren't as picked over as some of the other markets where deals are trading, every 2 years, every 18 months. You find that a lot in Dallas, Houston, and Phoenix as well. So we've averaged a 40% bump in NOI in the first 12 months across our portfolio because these properties were owned 7 years, 10 years. And like I said, new paint, landscaping, um, maybe rebrand the property, work on the interior units, add some amenities that are low cost, maybe a dog park or improve the pool area. And we're getting really big bumps and people are staying. It's not like they're leaving and we're turning over the whole property. We average, I think, a little over 34 months per resident, and the national average is close to 28 months. So you can charge market rate or even a little bit more, and people are going to stay longer because you're offering a superior product.
Man, I love that. You mentioned that, you're averaging a 40% increase in NOI over the first year, which I think many investors would love to boast about if they can make that happen. You started getting to a little bit of what you're doing, but I'd love to break that down a little bit more. Can you explain how you're able to drive that 40% growth that first year of ownership?
Yeah, and every property is different, but I'll use a property that we just bought in December in Tucson, and we saw the water bill, and it was like $275,000. So it was more than twice as much as a typical property for us in the 250 unit range. And we noticed that they're using a toilet that uses 3.5 gallons per flush. And if we used a low flow toilet, that's zero point 0.8 gallons per flush. So we got some estimates from a plumber, and we thought we'd have about a 50% savings on the water and sewer bill, which will create $2.8 million in value based on the cap rate. And we installed it, all the units in 1 week. I think it was like the end of January, about a month after we took over the property, and we're seeing a 75% decrease in water savings because of this. So, you're talking almost $4 million of value just by that one lever. Other levers we pulled where they weren't charging for pet rent, and so we started charging for pets, and we're not going to have a total absorption the first year. It's going to take a few years to get there. But again, that's we'll be able to get 15, $20,000 over the course of a few years. They also had patios on the first level of the units, but no privacy wall. And residents are willing to pay for that privacy wall. And so for about $1,000, we installed 128 of them, and we'll get $50 rent bump per unit per month because of that. Also on the expense side, they had an insurance claim at this property. That was about, so their insurance bill is $50,000 more than what our bill would be. So again, another big savings. They also had an additional person on staff that wasn't needed. And it's not like we're trying to run the property lean. We want it to run correctly, but felt we didn't need an extra person on staff, and that was a big savings as well. So lots of different levers that we can pull. We can add um, um, uh, parking spots that are near someone's um, unit, and so charge maybe $15-$20 if you don't, even if you don't have covered parking or not, but having, a preferred parking spot, that can add some revenue. We're adding at no cost to us EV chargers as well, and so it just helps us separate us from the competition, so someone is more likely to rent there. Now, it's not like Los Angeles when you see so many EV cars out there, but at least, whether it's one or even two, and they have a choice between our property and someone else's, they're going to choose ours because of the EV chargers, and we'll get a little bit of commission for someone using that. Um, so there's lots of different things that you can that you can do. It doesn't happen all overnight. It takes some time. You don't want to overload your property management company that you're working with, and there's absorption period, but over time you can really boost NOI.
Gary, those are some great strategies right there to drive NOI. You talked about one, looking at utility bills, right? Is there water usage or other reductions you can make with the expenses? Looking at the team, right? Looking at payroll. How many people do you have on staff? Can you make some adjustments there? Looking at the big ticket items, right? Insurance, taxes. Sometimes you can't do as much with taxes, but maybe you can challenge that. So just understanding where are the expenses at, what can you implement? Then you talk about on the other income, being able to charge for premium units, right? If you're adding privacy fences or doing something else to make those units premium, there's additional income there. Pet rent, adding dog park, other things like this can certainly help you drive revenue. And adding rubs and other utility bill back. So lots of great strategies, and by taking these approaches, you're able to drive that NOI by 40%. So really, really great insights of how you and your team are able to come into a property and create that kind of value. You are the author of the book Best in Class, so you are helping many other operators learn how to extract this kind of value out of the properties. Talk to me about what inspired you to write this book.
Yeah, when I started out, no one was talking about asset management. They were talking about how to get your first deal or your second deal or your third deal, but no one was actually talking about operating the property. And during that time, it was a great run. You're getting massive rent growth and stuff like that. But I was just shocked that, I mean, it is a business and people weren't thinking that way. Like each property is its own franchise. And so how do you measure the KPIs? How do you measure to success? And that all starts on your due diligence of laying out your business plan. What are we trying to achieve over what period of time? And that's played out in your pro forma and your investment summary, and then putting that into action. Just because you hand it over to a property management company doesn't mean that they're going to strive for success. They're going to do things at their own pace, but you've got to asset manage them, and that's what inspired me. I wanted to. I had experience running a business, um, but obviously, when we took over our first property, I didn't have experience in asset management, and so we really focused on that, started a podcast, and was interviewing a lot of people on asset management because I wanted to hyper fuel my growth as well. And so I would ask the questions to learn things that I didn't know, and really start that conversation with other operators.
Man, you just gave a really, really good insight, right? So, one, there wasn't a lot of conversation about asset management, especially when you're starting out, which makes sense because asset management doesn't matter until you have an asset to manage, right? So, if you're trying to get started, you got to have to figure that out first, then move on to asset management. But you talked about leveraging your podcast to have these conversations with people, to ask questions that you were interested in. And that is a little cheat code, right? If you are ever considering launching a podcast or having anything like this, one of the best benefits is to have conversations like the one Gary and I are having. When I launched this show, and this show is called Target Market Insights, and I did so because I was trying to figure out how to find the best places to invest. I couldn't figure out how to invest out of market. I knew the city I was in, and I could tell you this side of the street, not that side of the street, this neighborhood, not that neighborhood. But once I started trying to move to other cities, nothing made sense to me. You talk to one guy, he tell you this part of town. You talk to somebody else, he tell you that part of town, and you couldn't understand why. So that was my, mission and drive to launching this show. Ultimately, it evolved into Multifamily Insights. But there's a lot of power in being able to talk to these individuals. I know that I have a mentor that has been instrumental in my growth in being able to sit down and learn and grow. And now we help other people. I know that you obviously wrote your book. You're helping other people as well. Talk to me about just the education side, right? Being able to talk to these podcast guests, the book, other things. What are some of the other things that were important for you from a foundational standpoint to grow as an investor?
Yeah, obviously being around like-minded individuals because it adds energy. Um, People are, maybe not as open in the beginning, but you learn what people are doing right, what they're doing wrong. Um, I can any conference I go to, I'll probably know 100, maybe 200 people, maybe through social media, and we have some really good conversations. And I'll take away something from everyone. Maybe someone doesn't have to have done $250,000 in deals. It might have just been $5 million, and whatever it is, I might learn something from them. I might learn something from someone who's done $1 billion. But it's being around like-minded individuals that has really helped me. And I know if I don't know something, I can call someone and reach out and say, "Hey, do you have the answer? Can you help me out here?" And if they don't know, they can connect me to the right person. And that's been incredibly invaluable for my success.
What you just talked about there was having a mentality of, being a student, right? And being on a journey. So it's not that, hey, I've done $250 million worth of real estate. I'm the expert. You said, hey, man, you still learn from everybody, right? You're talking to a guy who could be pretty new, but you might be to learn something from him. But also recognizing that you may come across something where you need help and, having that network of people to reach out to say, hey, I'm experiencing this. Have you seen this before? How'd you handle it? That's invaluable. And that's one of the things I love about real estate and particularly commercial multifamily real estate investing is the community is pretty supportive, right? You can ask questions. People are willing to help. Maybe they don't give you all their secrets, right? But they're willing to help guide you in the right path and share what they did along that way. So really great insight to what it takes to be successful. You got to surround yourself with the right people, right? You have to have your tribe, the folks you can ask questions to, whether that means a mentor or coach, whether that means joining a community or mastermind, attending events. You've got to figure out how to surround yourself with people that can help you scale and grow. Gary, you said another thing that I think makes a lot of sense, right? Going back to starting out, not a lot of resources for folks learning how to asset manage. As you wrote the book and just have your conversations with other investors, what have you identified as like the biggest mistake you see operators making?
Yeah, I think they overcomplicate things. So I always tell people everything's in a Google sheet for us as far as our property calls. And so we'll have different tabs for each week. We'll have the CapEx tracker. We'll have a to-do list. Like you don't need expensive software. You just need attention to detail. You need persistence. You need to do it on a consistent basis. Like those are the basics will take you very, very far. And I think a lot of people aren't doing that. They get complacent, they focus on other deals. If something's running well, then they're on to focusing on something else. But that consistency is so key.
Yeah, consistency, make sure you have a way to track the information. And it doesn't have to be very complicated, right? You talked about having it, Google Tracker or something like that that's really easy,
Yep.
making sure you're having those conversations. Is there a tip or one insight you would give that really separates kind of the average operator from those who are best in class?
Yeah, I think it's going that extra mile. So visiting your properties on a very consistent basis and not always telling your your staff that you're going to visit it. We do it on a monthly basis, and this way we're developing relationships with our staff, and that's the beauty of being only investing in only a few areas. So when we go there, when we have those difficult conversations, we've already had 10 good, like maybe chill conversations of like building up that trust so that we're not trying to catch them doing something bad. We're trying to catch them doing something good. So if things aren't going right, we can have that tough conversation because we're seeing them on a consistent basis. So doing that, secret shopping them, and then giving them the feedback of what's working and what's not working. Um, we rarely have a secret shop that goes perfect. So those are really good learning opportunities for our team, because even the leasing agents really don't have that sales background, and it's all about sales. And you could see it at any a property. We can have multiple properties in the same submarket, but the person that has that energy, that's kind of sales mentality, their property is going to be at least, many percentage points higher than the next property because they have that. And so we, through the secret shop, we're able to kind of train them up on that, and they are getting trained by the property management company, but not to the ability that we want to see them at.
Yeah, what I'm hearing you talk about is one, secret shopping, right? Visiting the properties. That kind of is one of the best in class strategies that you employ. The other thing though is really helping, particularly the leasing agent, with them sales skills to close those deals, right? To close those applications and not just leaving it up to the property management company. So I'm sure that they have resources and trainings and things like that. But you obviously have developed some things over your experience that you're able to parlay and share with that on-site team. So I think that's really helpful and really important, right? It sounds like to me that you take a team approach. So, yes, there may be silos that this is your responsibility, this is your job, this is your role, and you can step away and let them do that. But if you feel like you have some resources that could help them be more successful, you're not afraid to step over that line. How do you balance that, right? Because I know so many people who almost get into this combative relationship with their property management team because they don't want to cross the line, or hey, this is my space, don't tell me how to do my job. How do you balance, like, again, being the asset manager and being responsible while still kind of allowing them enough space to kind of operate their business?
Yeah, it's a partnership, absolutely, and setting up really good expectations in the beginning, because I don't want a yes man or a yes woman. I want them to push back. I want them to feel like it's a collaborative nature. I want their input. I want them to say, this is what's working best in this market. I don't, even though I have, let's say 8 deals in Tucson, the property management company manages over 50. So I want that experience. I want that knowledge from their whole portfolio. So it's important to build that rapport. I trust you. I'm looking to you as an expert, and then you've got to take some of my input. So it takes time to develop that. That's not going to happen overnight. Um, but that's really important to develop.
Yeah, you talked about trust and partnership, and that really takes time to develop. But to your point, if everyone's on the same page and recognizing that this is coming from a great place, right? It's not about power, ego, or anything like that. It's really about, hey, how do we help each other succeed? Here's some things that I'm seeing, some resources or some, point of view that maybe you're not privy to. And same for them, right? They're obviously going to manage more properties. They can see what other owners are doing or what trends are in other areas, so they can bring that knowledge to the table. So form that partnership with your property management company. Don't treat them just like any other vendor. Don't feel like, you want to threaten to fire them if they're not doing something right. Like, you may end up having to at some point, but the goal is to come into it as a partnership, right? These are the people who are, the face of the company. They're seeing the residents on a day-to-day basis. They know the issues, the challenges, concerns that people have. You want to trust them. You want to build that relationship, and that's going to allow you to stand out and be successful. You talked about asset management, and we've been using that phrase pretty freely, but some people may not really understand, like, what asset management is versus property management. Can you elaborate and kind of define that from your perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. So as the asset manager, you own the property. Property management company does not typically. So you might get some companies that are vertically integrated or whatnot, but they'll manage the property from let's say 9 to 5. They punch in, they punch out, but you've got to implement the business plan and make sure it's getting done. You've got to measure to the KPIs, to your pro forma that you did in your investment summary. The property management company isn't really going to do that. So you have to manage the manager and picking the right time to sell the property and putting it into the best possible position. And that's really talking to their broker as well. Maybe you have to create a platinum level or whatnot, but that's all asset management. That's not at the property management level, and that's really a huge differentiator from one owner or syndicator from another. If you can get a few extra percentage points on occupancy because of that trust and partnership you've developed, or you pick the right time to sell the property versus waiting too long or selling too early, those little things add up to it could be a massive difference in what you get as an investor.
I think it's really great, man. When you think about that space, I know you're an entrepreneur, so you come from that background. I come from corporate America, so I always think about it as like the difference between being the CEO and like the director of operations. Well, the director of operations is always looking at the problem, right? What do I need to solve? And they want that solution. And sometimes that solution requires money, right? They're always going to look to money. Oh, we need to increase marketing. We need to spend more. We need to do this. We need to fix that. And as a CEO, you got to be responsible for the whole thing, not just fixing that little problem, but the financial aspect of it and overall budgets and team and morale and your investors. So you got to look at everything. So you've got the entire, playbook. They just kind of have that one sheet. So you have to inform them and arm them with the right resources. But ultimately, you are the one responsible. As you said, you're the owner as the asset manager. They're more so just managing the property planner role. So you don't want to turn over all the decision making and all the power to the PM. You definitely need to make sure you kind of retain that level of control. For folks who want to learn more, I know you've got your podcast, we've got the book, you've got a lot of great resources. Check out Gary on his website and his team, breakofdaycapital.com. We will link to that in our show notes. Right now, we're going to transition and go to our round of insights. Are you ready, Gary?
Maybe.
Give me a failure or an apparent failure that sets you up for later success.
Yeah, so at college, I owned a restaurant delivery service, and I remember my entrepreneur teacher in college said, "Do something you're passionate about." And I'm like, I just want to make money, but I quickly learned that I wasn't passionate about it, and so within a year, we sold that business, and from then on, did stuff that I was really passionate about, and that's helped me.
Give me a digital or mobile resource you recommend for your business.
We use Google Drive for everything. I know it sounds very simple, but everyone on our team can access it. It's live. We can track so much information, and that's really been useful for us.
Give me the book that you've recommended or gifted the most in the last year.
Crucial Conversations, and that will help you with personal and professional discussions that we're all afraid to have. It really will help you have those tough conversations.
What's a daily habit that helps you stay focused on your goals?
Yeah, I like to wake up early and exercise, whether it's beach volleyball or a walk, whatever it is, get my mind going, get my body going, and that's really helped me.
Give me your number one insight for being a best in class asset manager.
Um, I would say just like I said before, that consistency, that persistence. It's very whack-a-mole. Dealing with issues and also foreseeing issues that come up. So it's really important that just because your property is performing well, the second you take your eyes off of it, it can slip back, and it's constant work.
I love it, man. Well, listen, you are in Manhattan Beach, around the water and great weather. Give me your favorite place to grab a bite to eat.
Yeah, I'd have to say Barsha. It's owned by a husband and wife team, Tunisian restaurant. Great food, and my parents are coming into town next week, and I'm going to take them there again.
I love it, man. I love it. Sounds like a great place. We got to put that on the list next time we're out there in the LA area. Gary, you gave us some great stuff, man. You talked about kind of your background as an entrepreneur, getting into real estate, particularly commercial real estate, and then realizing that, hey, there's an opportunity to help other people learn how to be best in class operators. You wrote the book on it and gave us some great insights of how you're able to take your properties and on average increase the NOI by 40% within that first year with some very clear, tactical things that we can all implement. So really appreciate you sharing that and more information and insights about how to be, a best in class operators. Again, for folks who want to learn more, check out you or your podcast and your company, go to breakofdaycapital.com. We will make sure we link to that in our show notes. Gary, thanks again for being a great guest and coming on Multifamily Insights. We look forward to staying in touch with you and I hope you have a great day.